Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another week of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. I know you've heard this before, but it's going to be a great show. Just you wait. Before we get there, I just want to remind you that if you're not subscribed to the podcast, that's what really helps us. It also helps you because you'll get those episodes direct wherever you listen to podcasts on Monday and Thursday morning. They'll be waiting for you because we go twice a week now. Thanks to you. I really love doing this podcast. This week, we have Gino Barbaro of the Jake and Gino community. He's going to tell you how it started in the beginning in his restaurant and how he's gone all the way to creating the premier multifamily investing community with his partner, Jake. Let's go. This is episode 84 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Gino Barbaro. Gino is an investor, author, and entrepreneur. He owns over about 2,000 multifamily units, 250 million under management, father of 6 kids, author of 3 books, and the co-founder of the Jake and Gino community, which is built as the premier multifamily real estate educational community. Gino, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, doing great, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to have you. I'm excited to go down this rabbit hole with you. And I want to start here because I think a lot of people know you guys as the Jake and Gino community, but I don't know if they know this. How did you first get interested in real estate?
The year was 2002. So it's a long time ago. And my father said, real estate's a good thing, Gino. When you listen, your dad's name is Vito, you tend to listen to Vito. You know what I'm saying? Because else Vito's going to, But anyway, I digress. I love my father, just an amazing mentor. And he's just my dad. I've been working with him since I was 8 years old. And we had a restaurant at the time. So my father had the restaurant with my mom. They owned the building. So I was paying them rent, and we had 3 apartments upstairs. So mom is getting paid every day, whether it rains, snows, she's at home sleeping. But Gino working in the kitchen. If we have a bad day, we lose power, it snows outside, Gino's not getting paid. So that was already in my brain saying, I'm doing this W-2 job. I pick up Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I figure out, wow, I just created a job for myself. So how do I create this other income? So fast forward to 2002, there's literally 0.3 of a mile from the restaurant, a 3-family home for sale, brick. It looked like a war zone. It looked like Chernobyl, but that was okay because I said, hey, I could fix it. I could do all the work. I had a garage where I could store my supplies for the restaurant. And I started with the 3-unit with my brother. We bought it in 2002. We overfixed. I mean, the retaining walls, it's like the Great Wall of China, Jonathan. When you look at the property, beautiful. I made all my mistakes on that one. I thought I'd learn my mistakes into the future and made more. But that was the real first case, Jonathan, because for me, I couldn't fix and flip. I had the restaurant, so I needed to do something that was quote unquote part-time while I'm doing my side hustle. I can still work at the restaurant.
So where was that first investment? Where was the restaurant?
Yeah, the restaurant was in Mahopac, New York. It's in Putnam County, and literally, I mean, the house was literally, like I said, 0.3 of a mile from the restaurant. It was great. It was a really great learning experience. We actually hold on to that property for almost 20 years. I sold it back in 2021 when my brother left New York. So it was a really, really great first investment for us. Yeah,
and but growing up, like, did your parents talk about the building that the restaurant was in as an investment, or was it just like, well, we're running the restaurant out of here, we get money from upstairs?
It was a very interesting conversation with the family because both my parents were born in Italy. They had a little bit of a scarcity mindset because living in Italy in the 40s and 50s, it was very difficult. I mean, you're during World War II, you got Germans walking into the house, taking your food. There's just not any abundance there. So I had that savings mentality. Read The Psychology of Money. It was all about saving for us. And it wasn't really about enjoying as much, although we did a lot, but it was save, save, save. So save to buy that asset, save to buy that property for your retirement. So it was drilled into me early on at an early age. So I understood that at that level. But for me to continue with the business, I said, I want to continue to buy these assets on the side. So one day, hopefully I can leave the restaurant and go into real estate full time.
Yeah. I can think that parents of that generation coming over were just hoping like you didn't have to go through the struggles that they went through. So it's savings. But something must have clicked in you either before or after Rich Dad Poor Dad to say like, yeah, well, I can do both. I can help get the restaurant, keep it going, but I also want something, more. I want, multiple streams of income. Was it the book or was it something that you just really wanted to do more? You knew you didn't want to work in the restaurant forever.
Yeah, it was 2007 when my father passed away. And I remember it was a Labor Day weekend. We had the funeral on Monday of Labor Day, actually. And I remember saying to myself, is this my dad's dream or is this my dream? And then the Great Recession comes and everyone gets wiped out, including restaurants. And I'm working harder. I'm making less. And that's when I reflected. I picked up another book from T. Harv Eker, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And I had been blaming Obama. I had been blaming Bush. I was blaming the economy. And he basically said in that book, your fruits are in your roots. Basically, and I wanted to, if I'd met T. Harv at the time, I would have punched him in the face the first time I read it. But to me, it's a gut punch because everything he's saying in the book, it's truth. And I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the ability to create more money. And all of that time leading up to that time I read the book, those results was from what I had generated in my life. And once I understood that and I said, I need to become responsible, I just took that to heart and I said, I have to learn this multifamily things. I've made a couple of other mistakes. So I started getting educated. I started with the mentorships. And fortunately for me, in 2009, I met my partner, Jake, who was a pharmaceutical rep, who's taking food out of the restaurant. And we connected. And then 18 months later, Jake moves down to Knoxville. I mean, that was another blessing in disguise. See, so everyone says, oh, you're really lucky and all, but you can be as lucky as you want. If you don't put in the work and you don't have an intention and you don't focus, that luck will dissipate. He moves down there. 18 months after he moves down, we buy our very first deal. I know I cut a lot of stuff out of there, but I had always had that quote unquote wanting to build a business, wanting to become an entrepreneur, and having that solopreneur mentality with my father and being there, I was sort of stuck in that mold. And then when I got into multifamily, everything changed. It's all of a sudden, real estate's a business. It's not just an asset. It's not just, hey, a property. It's not just a cash flowing thing. You can build a scalable business with multifamily and you can actually start employing people and put systems and processes in that I should have done with the restaurant, but I didn't want to work on the weekends. I didn't want to work on Christmas. I didn't want to work on the holidays. This multifamily thing was so much different and so much, I don't want to say easier, but it really was the blueprint to creating wealth long term.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about, I have heard that too, like, oh, you got lucky, but like, it's very obvious that you created your luck. You got the mindset going, you started getting mentorships, you started learning, and then like Jake appeared at the right time, moved to the right spot. Those things happen. Sure, luck's involved in all of that, but you were pushing it into the right spot. And one other thing, because we definitely shared, like, so my dad passed away in 2004, and I was a lawyer at the time. I had been doing real estate my whole life, but I thought the same thing. I'm like, I was only really still a lawyer because he thought he was a lawyer and he thought it was cool that I was doing trials all the time. And then I was like, screw this. I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, I want to do more. So I started to, dabble in more real estate of my own, even though he had taught me. So it's interesting to see how it goes. I mean, did you feel like when you got into it and you started thinking multifamily, that just the fact that you had the restaurant, growing up and through the time you worked there, that you did know more than maybe you thought?
Jonathan, I think this is a teachable moment right now for a lot of people listening to this. If you're a parent, one of the most destructive things you can do to your child is to will your child into doing something that you want them to do, not what you want to do. So if you're a lawyer and you're 38 years old and you hate it, go back to your childhood or go back to the trauma that you may have experienced. And traumas don't have to be big. For me, it was actually, I loved it. I was 7 years old going to the restaurant with my dad. I was so proud. I thought every kid went to work with their dad. I just loved it. I loved the energy. I loved the hard work ethic. I loved being with him. And I grew up through that whole thing. So when I went to college and I got out of college, I found out the cubicle sucked. I didn't want to be in a cubicle. I wanted to own my own business. And
Yeah.
when we opened the restaurant, it was awesome for 10 years. The economy was great. It was a path of progress up there. We were making a lot of money, but I still didn't understand the concept of financial freedom, the concept of wealth. And then when, like what's happening right now, when the recession shifts and markets start cycling, you start taking a hard look. And was it a midlife crisis? It may have been. You start evaluating yourself and start saying, hey, am I doing the right thing here? Am I doing what I want to do? Am I doing what God intended me to do? Or am I doing something? Am I following the path that my father started for me, which is great. I don't want to take any of that back.
Yeah.
But if I look back, I probably should have gone into real estate out of college and gotten my realtor's license and started that path.
Yeah, when I finally, I was always investing the whole time, but 10 years ago, I got my license and my sister said to me, like, what were you doing? Like, we could have saved all this money. We would have had access. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So now I do on market as well. But yeah, that really resonates with me. And I think like, we were connecting before about, mindset, and this is about being mindful in the approach. And that's part of like understanding yourself. But so having 6 kids, that also puts a extra income thing out there that you want to get to. Has that had a big impact on you as a father to say like, I want to make sure that my kids are not only understand the long-term assets, but that I'm making sure they have things that are going to make money for them before they even know it.
For those fathers out there that are using their kids as an excuse to get into something different or take a risk, I have 3 words for you, or 4. Suck it up, buttercup. Don't ever use your kids as an excuse, because that's all it is. And that's what I was doing. And my mom would say to me, hey, you have 4 mouths to feed at the time, or you have 5, you can't take a risk. My mom actually did not know that I was investing with Jake until we had 200 units. And I said, Mom, by the way, I've been investing in about a year. And she was flabbergasted. And I do that just because I didn't want to hear the negativity. All she was trying to do was protect me. But as far as the children goes, I use that as motivation, because I didn't want my kids to see me come home every day from the restaurant pissed off, disgruntled, being a drag in the family. I'd walk in and I didn't want them to say, oh, Dad's home again. Now I come home and Dad's raring to go. I want all fathers and mothers out there. That's how I want them to live their lives. Don't focus on the money. Focus on the opportunity. The opportunity will come. The money will follow. And as far as the children, I wanted my kids all to become entrepreneurs early on. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked out that way. My 24-year-old is a missionary. Of all the things in the world, she's a missionary. That's the last thing I'd expect her to be, right? My 20-year-old, he's my son. He's just amazing. He's getting into business. My 17-year-old, she's doing body work and massage. She loves that. I'm a different Gino than I was 10 years ago. I would have been like, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing it. Parents, you can't do that. You need to raise them to be able to make those decisions on their own. You're there to provide a safe, healthy, happy environment, to create boundaries. And when they get to be older, you want them to make their decisions. But as far as investing, I've got them in all of my deals. Not all of them, but my 18-year-old and my 24-year-old, they've been invested in our last 3 deals. I want them to put money into it because I want them to understand, hey, you're investing your money, you're delaying your gratification, you're putting money into these deals. When you refinance, that's where you get the money back, and you get cash flow every single month.
Yeah, it makes sense. I have a 22 and 20, and it's like, I know that they're interested, but like I'm letting them, they're going to do their own thing. And like, they'll probably come back to it later, just like I did at 21. I was like, I mean, this is cool. I didn't realize, even though I was doing it all the time growing up, but like, then you realize later. But I mean, so when you guys started though, when you met Jake and you guys said, hey, let's make a community, did you have any idea that it was going to become what it is now?
Jonathan, that's another great question. In 2015, when I decided to leave the restaurant in October, I had left full-time March of 2016. I was in the midst of this personal development revolution. I had gone to life coaching school. I became a certified professional coach. I had learned empowering questions, limiting beliefs, blocks. I had learned a lot about myself and how to train others. And that was really, like you said, mindfulness. I became more mindful. I became more aware. And I started to see what I really, really liked. And I really liked helping people. I really liked listening to people. And that's why I created the community. I didn't think about becoming this guru or selling education. I just wanted to create a community because I saw what it did to my life. I would not be on the show right now if it wasn't for Jake. or my wife. Those are two people. That's my original mastermind. Then I met my partner, Mike. Then I can bring my brother, Mark, into the fold. And as the community starts to grow and the people start to grow around you, I'm like, this is really cool. If I have a question, I can go ask somebody. So that's how it started out. And ironically enough, you start to want to monetize a business. For us, it was really putting our business plan into a book, Will Our Profits. Our processes: buy right, manage right, and finance right. And all of a sudden you start teaching it, you start learning it. It's like, wow, we've become such better investors with all the stuff that we're learning, with getting on podcasts like with you, Jonathan, and networking with other multifamily investors, that it's really revolutionized our business. And oh, by the way, our community helps us out, because whenever we need something, we go to them and say, hey, does anybody have any pref equity out there? It's truly amazing what ends up happening. Start an educational community to be able to give instead of being receiving. I heard a quote yesterday. They said, men are givers, boys are takers. And you can be a 70-year-old, you can still be a boy if all you're doing is take. And I feel really blessed to be able to be a man, to be able to give, because part of the community is you're out there all the time answering questions. You're going to these live events. You're on these weekly calls, and it's a giving of yourself a lot. But in reality, you are receiving far more than you're giving. That's the great thing about, the space that I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime that you can relay your expertise and it helps someone, then it makes you feel good about yourself.
Absolutely.
Money doesn't have to exchange. And I think that's why this medium of podcasting is so interesting, because you can help so many people that you have no idea they're even listening. They're out there and they get one nugget from the show. And I always say to people, I know you guys know this because you're always in, on podcasts doing your own. It's like, this is the greatest thing ever. I learn something literally every single time I get off the podcast. I'm like, well, great. There's something else that I need to do, because everybody has so many good ideas and there's just so much to do in real estate as a whole. Mm-hmm. Did you guys decide to stay in just multifamily for a reason?
Jonathan, that's the beauty of it. In 2002, I bought that threeplex, which was supposed to be a fourplex. I converted it. In 2006, we'll call it the Maserati Mike story, where I invested in a mobile home park with a guy who drove a nice gold Maserati. Lost 172 grand.
Wow,
in 2007, I bought a strip center. In 2008, I bought duplexes up in Rochester. As you can see, I was all over the place.
Yeah.
I finally decided, what do I need to do? And even during these last couple of years where multifamily has been the rage and there's been no deals, I cut everything else out. We could have gone into RV parks. We could have gone into crypto.
Yeah.
We could have gone into single family. I wanted to become an expert at what we were doing. And I wanted to have that vertically integrated company where we're managing our own assets. And if you're managing your own assets and all of a sudden you decide to change and go into RV parks, well, the management is completely different.
So different.
For those of you out there, just think to yourself, multifamily hasn't had deals in the last couple of years. We bought some small properties, but over this last 8 months, we've gotten 2 deals and we've got our 3rd deal in the contract. It's cyclical. It's going to come back. And there's so much more to work on in this business. If you're not finding deals, build your brand. Find investors out there. There's so many other things to do than just deal flow out there. I think that's where we get lost in the weeds. But to answer your question, started out with no process. I met Jake. We found buy right, manage right, finance right. That's our process. And then from there, it's like, okay, all we're doing is multifamily, looking for mom and pops in the Knoxville within 3-hour radius. Let's go. And we haven't deviated from that plan.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think that's where definitely like new investors, like, there's so much stuff on social media. They're thinking the same thing. Like, should I start, with a 2-family? Should I house hack? Should I get, RV park? And you're like, just, try to focus in the beginning. Like, please don't think about, 50 unit apartment buildings when you're just going to try to do an FHA house hack. You're too far ahead. You got to figure out, how all of this works. But I think that it must have helped you guys, because you're totally right. The way that you manage multifamily buildings and apartment buildings, and even on the smaller scale, is a completely different world than RV parks, self-storage, assisted living. Like, those are not the same personnel that can manage those. And that would just cost you more and keep you too spread out, right?
And you're losing your focus. Because then all of a sudden you have an RV park, you underwrite that differently. It's a different business model, and you have multifamily. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, because I think there's a lot of people who are successful doing that. It's just that Jake and myself, we want to really be able to focus when that deal comes. Hey, we have the capital for the deal. We have the team in place for the deal. We know that deal makes sense. We can look at a deal in Knoxville right now and say, that deal at that price point is great because the rents are supposed to be there. And for anybody out there, if you're thinking about now is not the right time, interest rates have run up and all that, that's nonsense. Now, believe it or not, is the right time to get into it, because as the economy starts to pick up and as rates start to drop, you're creating a foundation. Now is the foundation. We started in 2011. Was a pretty bad time to start. There was no capital. Rents were in the toilet. GDP was terrible.
Yeah.
No consumer sentiment, but it was the right time for me because I was ready. I had the foundation. And then I caught, once again, that word luck. All of a sudden, the market runs up and I got lucky. Well, if you start right now and you get focused and you start join a mentorship or a community or whatever that looks like to you, you start now, give yourself 6 to 12 months. You're going to have a nice run up the next couple of years because asset prices will continue to drop.
Yeah, I really agree. And I think that too many people think getting started means they have to get a property. Like you don't have to have all the money right now, but you do need to be involved with other investors, and communities like what you guys have are so, so important. I talk about it all the time. You know, we do meetups. We're starting to do events on a smaller scale, but it's like when you see the camaraderie between investors who are all at different levels. So like we were saying before, one person's a rung up so they can help somebody below. They feel better, but then they can see the next person who's just one rung up, you know, one development up, and then they can learn something. And that inside a large community like you guys have, it never stops. It's like, you know, 2,500 units down to like 10 units, but they're going to keep going in there. And I think it helps to see other people who are just like you doing it. Because yeah, go ahead.
No, the important thing that you're saying something so important. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is really important for everybody. Multifamily is a team sport. So anybody listening to this is saying, well, why would somebody help me who's got 100 units and I have nothing? Well, that person with 100 units may need capital.
Yeah.
He may need boots on the ground. He may need somebody in that market. He may need somebody to help him with his branding. He may need somebody who's an operator.
Yeah.
You don't know what that person needs. Try to find out where your value is. Try to learn the entire business, because when Jake and I started, we started the entire business. We did everything about the business. As we started to scale, we're able to pick out, okay, Gino's really good on the education side. Yeah. He loves this. Jake's going to do the property management side. So don't have that scarcity mindset and say, well, that person's not going to help me. Our community is notorious for bringing in new people, because if you're a doctor who has no time but has got a significant balance sheet, and Gino here doesn't have the balance sheet but's got the time, has got the business model, that's a marriage made in heaven. Those two people are going to get together and they're going to make magic. But if they're on the island by themselves, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and they've been pre-vetted because they've both agreed to be inside the community where there's guidelines and boundaries where people, you know, if you do something wrong in there, like you're going to get kicked out. I don't have to ask you too much after you said, like, don't mess with Vito, to know, like, don't screw around in the community. You're going to end up on the outside. But yeah, I think it's so important. You can learn so much. And I think the outward perception by just people who maybe are novices is that, like, investing isn't like collaborative, but that's all it is. It's like the least individual thing. Like maybe I do buy a property on my own, but everything I learned came from all these people, podcasts, friends, you know, opinions of somebody saying like, yeah, actually, I know that area. Like you said, I know it better than you. Let me give you some advice. Is that something that's just like helped you keep growing the community because they realize like, this is the way to go. We can all do this together.
It's an amazing point. Another one you've made. I think with the community, when you're starting an educational community or any kind of community, it comes down to culture and core values. Yeah. And we're not signing anybody up. We're not sourcing credit. If you can't afford the investment, I really can't help you. And I think the first part is the mindset. Like you said, mindset needs to be crucial. There's 3 people that we can really help in our community. If you're in the single family space, looking to get into multifamily, hooray, game on. If you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, you know, high income earner, salesperson, then you've got that mindset as well. And the third part is if you're in multifamily looking to scale. So we already have those avatars. If you're someone who I have to convince that multifamily is the right thing, and you're like, where do I get the money? It's going to be a really hard challenge. So I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm here to help people who understand that. And that 1 or 2 bad apples will kill the bunch. That's why it's very hard to really cultivate it, understand. I forgot Collective Genius. I forgot Jason Medley's his name. He has a great slogan. His slogan is culture over commissions. So basically, same with us, we will not sign somebody up if they are not a good culture fit for our community. And it's the same thing with employees and with vendors. If they don't fit your culture, your core values, please don't let them into your community. They're going to ruin your community. We're not flashy. We're not the avatar where we're driving Lamborghinis. We're the family guys. So most of our community is family. They're faith-based. That's what they want in our community. That's what we resonate, and that's what we try to attract. And hopefully those are the people that, we get in the community and we keep them in. And it's important. And to those of them out there, once again, don't think it's just about the money. There's, Mark Twain's got a great quote. It's not what you don't know that's going to get you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so.
That's great.
And if you go back and listen to that, some of you might be saying, well, I can't get into multifamily because I don't have the money. Well, let me tell you something. Jake didn't have that much money back in 2013. I did neither. We used something called creative financing. We seller financed our first deal.
Yeah.
On our fifth deal, it was a 281 unit deal, $11 million. It was 20% seller finance, the down payment, 80% by the bank. We brought in $0 to an $11 million transaction, and we got $100,000 back at closing because of prorated rents. You can't do that. Never seen that before. I never saw it before either. But if I had that limiting belief of, I don't have money, I'm not going to get into multifamily. No, you don't have skills. You don't have value. That's what you don't have. You don't have the mindset. That's what holds people back. Don't have these limiting beliefs. Understand the business. Now, the other word, syndication. Syndication is a great way to get into multifamily. You're using other people's money. Yeah. We didn't start out by that, but you can use that tool as well.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think it gives the opportunity for people, like you said, get your feet a little bit wet, start to understand. And even for people who start out as LPs, at least you're getting you're getting the rundown, you're seeing what happens. Hey, it's Jonathan. This is just a brief interlude to talk to you about Deal Machine. Listen, I've used Deal Machine, and I was crushing it with my Concerned Citizen postcard on Deal Machine. You can look that video up on my YouTube and find out how I did it. It works. Deal Machine works. I've had David Lecko, the CEO, on the podcast. So if you want a free trial of Deal Machine, the elite Driving for Dollars app, and I'm telling you, it works if you use it correctly, you can go to my link at bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. Now, bit.ly is bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. It's free and you'll be up and running in 2 minutes, and then you can figure out if you want to keep it. Let's get back to the show. But yeah, I think it's really for people to understand what they can do as a new investor, they have to understand that creative financing exists. They also have to understand it's not easy. But if you look at commercial right now, don't you think seller financing and all sorts of alternative financing is going to be huge moving forward because there's so many vacancies in large scale commercial?
It already is huge. We closed our first deal in January this year, the first deal this year. We had a $450,000 seller finance note. We had a second deal on the contract in March. It was an $8 million deal. They were giving us $1 million in seller financing as a down payment. Now we didn't close the deal because there was so much deferred maintenance, but that was it. It's so prevalent right now because the market cycle is shifting back into a buyer's market cycle where all of a sudden sellers are having a little more problems. They're not getting their price, and guess what? Yeah. Debt is pulling back. So when debt pulls back and it gets harder, creative financing, seller financing, master lease options, those creative financing techniques are going to work for the next 2 years. They worked in 13, 14, 15, 16. It slowed down. People still did creative financing in the last couple of years. It just wasn't as prevalent. But now, mark my words, I just had a student call me up 2 weeks ago. Big shout out to JP. 10-unit deal, fully settled seller finance, $1.2 million, 3.5% interest rate, 30-year AM. No money on the table. Now, why would the seller do that? Because the seller was burned out. The seller didn't want to pay taxes. He wanted to defer. So it's a whole run for this. And the seller got his price. So if you don't understand the reason behind and how seller financing works, you won't be able to use the tactic. Remember Mark Twain. It's what you know for sure, don't know for sure. That just ain't so.
Yeah, you said something so important right there at the end. I don't want people to miss it. It's that the seller can get their price. That's the seller financing thing. It doesn't make any difference really what their price. It's the terms for seller financing. You want $1.2 million? I can figure out how to make it work for $1.2 million. Then they feel good. And like you said, they're trying to defer gains, especially for older operators of large scale multifamily. They're totally burnt out, especially after going through the pandemic. And now, maybe they just don't want to hang on to it anymore. It's a great opportunity, but like you do need to be coached in order to understand seller financing. Do you agree with that? I don't think it's not easy.
No, it's not that it's not easy. If you don't know it, you've never heard of it, you think it's too good to be true.
Right,
I learned it from Jay DeSima, Fixer Jay, years and years ago. He wrote a couple of great books. Look him up, Fixer Jay. Then I met our coach, Bill Ham. Bill Ham has done over 400 units of seller finance. We wrote the book Creative Cash. If anybody wants that book, email me, gino@jakeandgino.com. I'll send you a free PDF copy of the book. We wrote it 2 years ago. Perfect timing. And it's going into this. But more importantly, is when you have a coach, you pick up the phone and you say, hey, Bill, or hey, Mary, I'm doing through this deal. Can you help me out? And they've done these transactions before. This guy, JP, got a 30-year amortization, no balloon, 3.5% interest rate in this time. Is that asset worth something? Absolutely. That's amazing debt. Would he have gotten that by himself? Not a shot in hell. Bill walked him through on how to get that. What is that worth to somebody? That 10 units, you may be saying to yourself, it's not a lot. $200 profit per unit. He's only going to make $2,000 a month in cash flow. That's not the only thing. He has cost segregation and he's learned strategy. And going forward, 10 units is going to turn into 30 units and 30 units is going to turn into 50 units. And he has credibility. He closed his first deal. So for those of you out there, start reading books on creative financing. There's not a lot of books out there, but it is an amazing strategy.
Yeah, I agree. And that's his first deal. The reason why he can do that first deal now is because he didn't listen to all the BS that's out there about like, you can't invest now. It's too hard. Wait 4 years. He just kept learning. And then boom, a deal presents itself because you're still working at finding the deals. I love it. And I think that's what we want to tell people now. Like, don't stop. Just keep looking. You never know when the deal's you have to be ready. You can just give up. We're going to take 2 years off. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's the thing. And a guy like JP could have said, hey, this deal fell in my lap. Once again, the luck. Nothing falls in your lap because when you're talking to brokers, when you're underwriting deals, when you're doing property tours, when you're coming out to events, and when you're networking, all of a sudden you start seeing things. And you're like, you start recognizing patterns. You start seeing things. That's all investing really is. It's a pattern. Where's the money flowing in? How do you take these deals how do you put them on the contract? And how do you manage these assets? That's the pattern to being an investor. For me, like I said, once again, multifamily provides so many more material benefits than the actual average stock trader or commodities trader or crypto trader. I think it just lends itself to being able to really become an amazing scalable business.
Yeah. And just comparison, because I do this a lot. If you think about large scale multifamily, just say like 100-unit complex, you have the ability to add value to that. You can buy a distressed asset, fix all the units, and then the rents double. Crypto stocks, you can do absolutely nothing. You have no control of what they're going to do. You can be good about figuring out when to buy them, but you can't physically make something change in those things. Whereas real estate is just like, improving a multifamily building at 100 units, no, I don't think people realize how much money that's going to make you over time. It's going to cost some money to do, but it's exponential what happens after that. 2
points I'd like to make on that, and you just fed it really beautifully. That very first deal we did in 2013, 25 units, $600,000 purchase price. The rents were $350 for the one beds. Wow. The rents today, we still own it. They're $1,100.
Look at that. That's crazy. That's more than 3 times. That's more than a 3x, and not that long.
Think about that. That's really, really powerful. It's buying right and sitting tight. And I think that's what people don't understand. Now, when you're doing stocks and you're doing crypto, I would just go out there and ask yourself an honest question. How many people do you know have become wealthy through stocks and crypto, and how many people have become wealthy through real estate and through businesses? There's 3 things that we're really focusing on, Jake and myself: the real estate, the multifamily, businesses. We like looking at businesses, whether it's the education, the property management, and the third one, believe it or not, is whole life. I'm enamored with what whole life allows you to do with the cash value, borrowing it, buying assets, and you have a life benefit, and the death benefit. It's just as far as estate planning goes, those are the 3 buckets we're playing in. And when I look at anybody who has a significant net worth, they all own real estate, they all or have a type of business, and most of them have some type of whole life insurance in place. So that's where our focus has been and will continue to be.
Yeah, and you said get wealthy, and I would even say, and I know you'll agree with this. It's like who stays wealthy?
Yes, great
Crypto
point.
and stocks don't stay wealthy. I mean, sure, they all bought mansions when crypto was hot. Guess what's going on now? Those are all gone because
Yes,
crypto's gone. Like, and it's the
yes.
same with stock. I like stocks, but like it's more like going to gamble for me. I'm not a gambler. I just assume I'm making a donation to a casino. And I'm good. I had fun. But that's stocks for me. I put 20,000 in. I'm just going to play around with it, see if I can turn it into 30 and then sell it. But real estate is so much different because you can watch it transition. And like you said, you can go from $350 rents to 1,100 in like 20 years or even less. That's crazy. And that's like that. It's just a patience thing. Do you feel like newer investors, especially now
Yes.
with everything that they can see on social media, they just don't have the patience. They want to get 100 doors right away. So they make very dumb decisions to try to do that.
And it's funny, you use the word play. It's interesting the words that we use. Why would anyone, and I did the same thing with crypto. I got 25 grand in crypto. It's my play money, but no investor would ever use that word play. You would never play with a multifamily building.
Yeah.
That it's really interesting you say that. And it's just powerful, the words that you use. My son, when he was 16 years old, came to me and said, Dad, I have $5 grand in the bank. I want to buy this amp. Amp is $1,500. I'm like, Mike, at the time, as a parent, I said, no, I will not allow you to buy that because you're spending 30% of your net worth on an amplifier that you don't need. Instead, invest the money in a real estate deal with us. And at 16 years old, he kept hammering me down and I didn't give in. And he invested the money. And 5 years later, that money is 100x the $5,000 investment.
That's awesome.
Because what happened is we kept refining and refining. Then he bought another deal and another deal. The point I'm trying to make, and the amazing thing is, the questions he was asking me every month, what are the owner draws? What's the occupancy? Hey, Dad, can I borrow money? Can I do creative financing? And I'm like, Mike, you're already liquidating me. You're already diluting my shares. But those are the questions you want your kids to ask. And the most important lesson was delaying the gratification, knowing, and it's funny, we just signed a deal 3 weeks ago and he got his federal firearms license, my son. He's 21 years old. Amazing. And he's like, Dad, I'm going to buy a couple of guns. And then I'm like, the next day, I'm like, Mike, we just got a deal on the contract. He's like, well, I guess I could wait for the guns. Because that money he had earmarked for the guns, he's like, that's going into the deal because that deal will produce cash flow to allow me to buy the guns. So for those of you out there, if you can actually become responsible for your life and delay the gratification, those two things, and commit, those three things, all you have to do, if that's all you do in your life, you will crush it. You will create amazing results.
Yeah, and I think commitment is really important because, again, there's so many shiny objects out there. Everybody looks like they're crushing it in real estate because they're driving a Lambo, which most of us could give two shits about, But so I feel like this generation is looking at stuff thinking like it's going to be easier. But you have to be long-term committed. You have to listen to podcasts. You have to read books. You have to be vociferous about what you're taking in. And then you have to be the same about talking to people. But we were saying something before about mentorships. And one thing I want to get your take on, to me, I feel like the mistake of people who are looking for mentors in the business, or even when they're looking at larger communities, is they just come in with no ask, like you were saying before. Where's the value? I'd much rather have a question that says, I'm looking at this deal. This is the things that I think are right. This is what I'm worried about. What do you think I should do? That's a great question for someone like us with experience to be able to give an answer. If you come to me and ask, hey, how do I become a real estate investor? I want to go jump off a bridge. It's just, and I think you look on social media, it's there's so much out there. It looks easy, but it's definitely not easy. And you have to be putting in the research all the time. It's
interesting because most of the questions that we get from beginning investors, people don't know, they'll ask things like, I need deal flow. I need a deal. And then I back up and I say, well, what's a deal look like to you? What is that? What do you mean? I said, well, there's a buy right criteria. A deal for Jonathan and Gino looks a lot different than someone who's starting their journey versus someone who has $7 million in the bank liquid. I mean, so they don't even know what they don't know. Follow a process, follow a framework. It's buy right, finance right, and manage right. Learn the business first. And then there's tools and strategies within real estate that will allow you to excel at those strategies. But I think just taking a deep breath and stepping back and going, okay, I understand all this, but where do I start? Man, it starts with education. It starts with getting clear on your goals. What are your goals? Are you looking to retire from your business? I have a lot of students who like what they're doing. They just want to get in and supplement their business. I have students who want to go into it full time. So understand what you're trying to accomplish. Then understand, is it cash flow or is it capital appreciation? And then finally, what markets? Those are the things you need to start thinking about as you're starting your journey in any real estate endeavor, but especially multifamily. What are your goals? And then what market are you focused on?
Yeah, you went right where I wanted to go, because I wanted to talk about the why for real estate investors. Because like you said, you're not taking everybody into the community. And the why is really important, in addition to, can you really afford to be in there? Because if you don't know why you're doing it, you're not going to succeed, and you're not going to read books. You're not going to listen to podcasts. You're just going to wait for someone to tell you what to do. And then if it doesn't work out perfectly, you're going to blame them when you just weren't doing that. Is that something that you guys talk about a lot, especially when you're talking to investors who are trying to get in?
Yeah, we do. And I think, unfortunately, the reason why I became successful is, maybe you have the same sentiment as I do. I had significant pain, and I wanted to get rid of that pain. And how do I get rid of that pain? Tony Robbins says it best. He wants to work with people who are really, really super juiced, taking it to the next level, or people who really have a problem and really hate their life. If you're in between, everything's okay, you don't want change. I wanted change. And the problem with me was, I didn't know what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want, but I didn't know the clarity of what I did want. And once I understood that, everything changed for me. So if you're sitting out there and you're saying, you know what, my life sucks, I want something different, then you are ready for change. And if you're someone out there that was, listen, I got a great life, I just want to multiply or transform a little bit. Those are the two kinds of people out there. And that's why those are the ones, I think personally, the ones who succeed. Like you said, they have a real reason why. There's a reason why they're doing this. It's not just about making money, because there's so many other things to do about making money.
Yeah.
But for me, the real estate thing is, you can create a lifestyle. You can create a lifestyle. Why would you just want to have a business that's around, a business that's around your lifestyle? You want that lifestyle that really forms your business. And I think multifamily real estate allows you to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people think that we're like, the goal is the profits. It's not, it's freedom. You use the money to get the freedom, and that means freedom for your family, and then freedom to teach your kids about how you can get it. And so I was on the other side of that. Like my dad was self-made. His dad was an alcoholic gambler, but he made everything himself. He made no money as an attorney. He made it all in real estate by just figuring out how to do foreclosures before the internet existed. So I had that part easy. But when I was 16 and 17 and 18, I was doing collections on the rental properties. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was starting to get it, so that when it all kind of you have this moment, I think I was probably about 20. I was like, oh, okay, wait, I know a lot. And I really respected that he didn't care about it. He wasn't like a flashy guy. He was just grinding. We just went to yard sales and dumps all day on the weekend. And I think, but people think maybe it's glamorous. It's not. If you like multifamily, single family, you're going to look at a lot of dumps. You have to know what they smell like to understand, how's this going to work? Is this too much for me, for a new investor? And that's why, getting partners, looking at syndications, becoming part of communities much takes the edge off of trying to go do a first flip when you don't know anything. You're going to lose all your money.
Yeah, and that's the thing that always got to me. One of our coaches says, you're either going to learn in the classroom or you're going to learn on the street. And I learned on the street before I met Jake. And then I decided to learn in the classroom. And learning in the classroom, believe it or not, the investment was a lot less. I didn't pay $172,000 to my first 4 mentors combined. I paid it to Maserati Mike. And the second deal, I lost probably 3 times that amount because I didn't want to invest in myself. I saw that as an expense. When you see investing in yourself as an expense, you're going to have that scarcity mindset. When you see it as an investment, you're like, wow, I learned this new skill, this new strategy. I can keep this strategy and the skill for the rest of my life. There's the shift. There's the paradigm that you need to have when you're looking at growing yourself and growing your business.
Yeah, I have a question for you around that, because I think it may help other people as well. Even at your guys' level, obviously you run a big community, but are you two also both seeking out your own coaches and mentorships on the higher level?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I
knew the answer, but I wanted everyone else to know.
I just did a couple speaker trainings. I just joined another community that's working on speakership. We actually did an actors class last year before MM5 because we wanted to do some stand-up and some improv. I was in Ryan Serhant's office in January. We were just doing a one-day intensive on branding. That was not cheap. I was in Ireland in May with Phil McKernan and I know the Jake and Gino couples doing couples coaching. That wasn't inexpensive. And these are things that you need to continue to work on. I had never gone back in my past and looked at my childhood as deep as I did and said, wow, this is why I'm doing this for a reason. And why am I yelling at my wife? Oh, it's not my wife, it's me. And all of a sudden, all these different emotions. But just to give you a couple examples, scaling up coaching. I mean, there's just process coaching. We're talking about advertising, marketing, all these things that we don't know. We're not born with any of this stuff. So if you want to learn it, go out there and find somebody who has success. Success leaves clues. They'll teach you how to do it. And I think ultimately, when you have skin in the game and you put money into something, you will value it and you will treasure it a lot more. If you're looking at a YouTube video at 1:00 in the morning in your underwear, you might listen to the guy, you might not. But when you're on a call with a coach and you spend thousands of bucks, that coach's words are gold, and you're going to actually take action on those words. I've seen it countless times.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, let's see what you think. I mean, so to me, all the programs and anything that's paid for, there's always people who go in and they don't succeed and then they complain. But 98% is user error. It's because they go, they get into a program and they think like the program's just going to it's going to happen by itself. And they don't want to do anything. So like any program, even ones that look shiny, usually if you take action and do the steps, you're going to be successful. It's just about whether or not you're actually going to do it. But I guess, part of having coaches is helping you get motivated, but they can't create the motivation. You have to come to the table ready to go.
And that's what part of our fulfillment at our community is. We have 5 internal boot camps a year. So we don't want to leave students out on an island. We get together 5 times a year. So it's like January, March, July, September, October, December. We're getting together in these different various boot camps. We have weekly lessons. Every Monday, Jake and I are on teaching something. We have monthly masterminds that we're going to start instituting. So there's tons of touch points because we want to hold them accountable. But you can bring a horse to water. You can't force the horse to drink. So that's why I was saying that pain and that big why. You have to understand why you're doing it. And it's interesting. You can look at a student and say, this person has no business becoming successful. They have no balance sheet. They have no business experience. And yet they're closing on their 100th unit. And you may have this person who's got a strong balance sheet, looks good on paper, says all the right things, and they don't have a strong enough why because they're not too uncomfortable. They're making enough as a W-2, but they don't have that pain.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really important that you guys are there. It's still, you and Jake still doing it because there's plenty of communities out there that you sign up for and then you go and you get, an underling of an underling and then this person and then you get 5 seconds with the figurehead. You don't want
that. Yeah, that's
terrible.
See, our core value is people first. So if I'm putting people first and I'm selling to Jake and Gino, I have to be there. I go to all the events. I'm on all the Monday lessons. I'm on all the masterminds. Those are really important for me because they're investing in us. They're investing in our culture. They're investing in our community. And for me to disappear and drive off in a Lambo, that's not who I am. That's not what the community is about. So when you're out there looking for a community, make sure they resonate with you. Make sure the leaders resonate with you. Make sure the community members resonate with you. Talk to some people in the community. You'll get the vibe right away. You'll know that it's a good fit or not a good fit. You just will.
Sure. Yeah, and people forget by you still being on those calls, like we were saying before, you're getting stuff out of that. Because you can help multiple people at once, start to get on the path to achieving their dreams, whatever that is, the part of freedom that they want is sitting there. And I know this, like, you're looking into your group and then you see it just click for somebody and like in 2 months the deal's coming, like they just finally got it.
Yes.
It doesn't happen the same speed for everyone. That must be really gratifying because you have so many people in there, but you just know that moment when they got it and you're like, oh, here we go.
Yes, it's a great feeling. The event we did in May in Ireland with the couples coaching, we had 9 couples go out there and to actually see everybody work on their relationship and to see them sitting with their emotions and to see them, taking ownership of the mistakes that they made. That was really cool. That really helped me out tremendously for my personal growth because it is multifamily, but it's also, you're doing this to better your life. And if you're doing it for the wrong reasons or why are you doing it? It's always really good to understand why you're doing things. And if you're doing it for the wrong reason, you may become successful. Then all of a sudden I'm successful, but I'm not feeling right because you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I agree. I think ego is a big detractor in investing. It makes us make all the, we've all done it at some point, thought I knew everything, made a ridiculous, dumb decision, lost a bunch of money. Then it's about whether you're going to learn your lesson or not. But I also think a lot of what you're saying, like when you said you're going to do the couples work, for me, like self-awareness is so important. I went through, personal growth revolution about 10 years ago too, because I just realized like, hey, I really need to get a handle on myself, like you said. And the second that I did that, everything started to get so much easier because I was honest about the stuff that I had I have made bad deals. I'm not hit a home run on everyone, and sometimes I had a bad day. I did something I didn't. But each time I do that, the better I work on it, the better I get. That means the better my businesses get because I'm more focused. Have you found that with all of these different coachings and things that you're putting in for you, that it just makes your businesses better and your life better?
Yeah. One of the things I really learned was everyone on this planet is angry. I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was an angry person. I don't show anger. I don't display anger, but I suppress the anger. And once you understand it, I didn't want to feel guilty about it. I'm like, oh, wow, I was angry about that situation. And I do blow up sometimes. Well, why is that? Oh, you start going down that and you start becoming aware of yourself. And I don't want to sound corny, but it is a real estate podcast, but you have to have self-love. If you don't love yourself, you will never be able to love another person. And understanding that you're a creator for something great, that all of a sudden changes everything in life. And you can deal with the bad stuff. Not every day is going to be great. It's not how it's supposed to be. But understanding that and being aware and being honest with yourself, it's a great way to tackle every day.
Yeah, I love it. No, I mean, this is about the mindful approach to real estate investing. And I always know, and again, I was a trial lawyer, so like I was always arguing for so many years. But even in a transaction, when someone on the other side is just being a complete ass for no reason, I always think in my head, the way that I've reframed it is like, they must have something going on.
Yes.
They're mad at themselves. They're just taking it out on me because they got something going on. And I do that like, when someone cuts me off in traffic, other people honk, they start screaming. And I'm like, maybe they have to go deliver a baby. Like what?
Yes.
That's kind of like, those are the lessons my dad, tried to teach me when I was young. And I was like, you're bothering me. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, I gotta figure this out. But that's really important. You have to be able to look in a transaction. A lot of different things happen. You think you're going to get a property, like you were saying before on the one deal, like you get really close and then it falls apart. You have to know, like, okay, well, we learned a lot in that. Next one's going to work out. That's important for new investors too, don't you think? Like,
yes.
I just made a video yesterday. This is your biggest power in real estate is your ability to walk away. What do you think about that? Because I feel like people think, I have to get this transaction. It's like, no, you'll be fine if you don't get it.
It's the resiliency part of it. And that's part of it where you're becoming desperate. And once you become desperate, you tend to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Let the game come to you. Don't think that every deal is a win or lose. There's a lot of other deals out there. No deal is better than a bad deal. And I'm sure Jonathan can tell you, and I'm sure that I could give you the horror stories. I've given you a couple. And that one transaction in 2006 that I owned for 10 years, probably lost over $500,000. But it wasn't the money. It was the effort, the time, the pain with the residents, the property manager, all of that combined. So don't rush. Let time, prepare yourself, get the right team, and the deals will come to you. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing. I feel like this is a time for the last, X amount of years, people have been saying, oh, there's no inventory. There's no inventory. And I always say, like, look around. There's inventory everywhere. It's just not on the market.
Yes.
So do you want to learn how to get it when it's not on the market? Or do you just want to look at stuff on the market? Do you agree with that? If that's a different mindset.
Jonathan, it's a great point because back in 2018, 2019, everyone thought that was the height of the market. I'm not going to get 2020 by a show of hands. How many thought 2021, 2022? Right. Everyone kept telling me, well, when the market resets and we go into reset, well, it's here now, folks. That's what everyone's been clamoring about. But everyone hears the news and hears the doom and gloom. Real estate's going to be fine for the long term. It's a long-term vehicle. It's a basic human need. It's food, clothing, and apartments. And if you buy right and you sit tight, in our model, you'll do okay. And I think if you look back, you can be a judge of yourself. Were you saying the market was at a high and I wasn't getting into it? And now all of a sudden the market's going crazy. I'm not going to get into it. Continue to make those excuses. That's the limiting beliefs that I had early on. So don't have those limiting beliefs. Challenge those limiting beliefs. Remember what Mark Twain said. It's so important. Using all of that, create a plan for yourself going forward. And don't worry if you don't get a deal this year. There's always next year. There's the year after that. You got 20, 30, 40 years remaining of your life. There's such a long time horizon to really do well in the business of real estate.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So I bet everybody knows this, but is the best place to find you at jakeandgino.com?
That's it. That's the hub. Just go to jakeandgino.com. We have the podcast, the blogs. just go check us out there.
Yeah, if for some reason you've been, I don't know, flying around the world and not paying attention, if you just plug in Jake and Gino anywhere, you'll find them on social media, find their website. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. It was just a pleasure to meet you. And I hope we get to meet in person one of these days soon.
Thanks, Jonathan. I had a great time. Great conversation. The time flew. And for everybody out there, let's just take a deep breath. Let's assess what's going on in the economy, and let's think long term.
Perfect. That was Gino Barbaro of Jake and Gino. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.